I can't remember the last time I did a top 5 list where most of the movies were just kind of mediocre. Hello and welcome to another episode of Sci-Fi Night Top 5. In this episode, we're listing our top 5 favorite video game adaptations, so get your controllers ready. If you've seen some of my previous videos, then you'll probably know that I'm a pretty big fan of video games. From Half-Life to GTA, there are so many great games that I spent countless hours on.
You have been a busy boy!
Obviously, very many well-known video games have been turned into movies, with mostly shitty results, unfortunately.
I just want total domination of one major American city! Is that too much to ask for? Is it?
And the Oscar goes to...
Yeah, like for some reason, video games just don't really translate that well into film. Most of the time, anyway. Obviously, there are exceptions.
Of course!
Most of whom will be on this list, but it's depressingly hard to write a list of good or even okay video game movies.
Mother, you're alive.
Too bad you will die.
What the fuck is this?
Unfortunately, most video game films are shit. A lot of people think that that's because movie studios, being real-life evil corporations that they are, simply don't have any faith in video games as a serious medium and look down at them as more of potential monetary success when it comes to brand recognition. And basically they just want to milk the fans of those series. So before we start out with a normal list, we're going to get to a dishonorable mention, which is just basically half of Uwe Boll's career and every single video game adaptation that he's ever done. Oh, Uwe Boll, you asshole.
Who the fuck is this asshole?
Easily the worst thing to come out of Germany since the Third Reich, this
retarded amateur idiot
seems to almost purposely make movies that have nothing to do with the video games they're based on. Alone in the Dark was neither lonely or dark.
I thought you were dead, you asshole.
Blood Rain took place hundreds of years before the game it was based on.
Why do you tell me this? Because it's my purpose.
Far Cry was just retarded. Basically, I could diss his films all day, but I would be giving this asshole more recognition and attention than he deserves, and I just don't want to see his fucking face anymore.
I hate video games.
Alright, so with that scheisse out of the way, let's move on to the real list. Let's move on to the number 5 spot, which goes to Tomb Raider 2: The Cradle of Life. This film is based on the video game series Tomb Raider, which follows Lara Croft, who's kind of like the female Indiana Jones.
Schilling have men on every road from here to Loyang.
Not every road.
So it's kind of weird, but when it comes to the Tomb Raider films, the sequel is actually better than the first. The first was alright, but it didn't really stand out a whole lot. In the sequel, they basically just seem to be having a lot more fun, and it showed in the film.
That was nice. It's too bad you're on the wrong side.
The action, story, and characters were all better and more memorable, and even if it wasn't the best adaptation ever, it was still pretty fun and at least felt kind of close to the video games. The film has tons of flaws and is pretty stupid. For example, there's a point where a bleeding Lara Croft punches a shark in the face. But half of the original games more or less just served as eye candy for horny boys who didn't have access to the internet at the time. The fact that they even bothered trying to have a story with twists and turns is admirable. Also, Angelina Jolie actually pulled off the role of Lara Croft very well, and she's by far the strongest aspect of both films. Just be sure not to piss her off. Alright, the number 4 spot on this list goes to another kind of okay film, I guess. Prince of Persia. So I just want to be clear, Prince of Persia is one of the most underrated video game series ever. It's funny, interesting, witty, clever, heartfelt, exciting. It's got everything that a great game should have. In the film, this Persian prince is played by white boy Jake Gyllenhaal because, this is a Hollywood film, and there's a long line of white actors playing parts that really should be more suited for indigenous people. So, much like the casting in this film, the movie didn't really get on the number 4 spot on the list by being super good or appropriate. It just got on here by being mostly competent. So sure, Gyllenhaal does a fine job, but he's a veteran actor, so he really should. And even so, he's not nearly as charming as the prince in the video games.
Don't press your luck.
Ben Kingsley, I guess, is about as good as half the crap he's been in lately, but overall the film is just super cliche by the numbers adventure that could just as easily been Pirates of the Caribbean Part 8, Journey into Persia. Overall, the film is mostly harmless, it's a good way to pass the time, and it's not as flawed as a couple other video game adaptations out there, and I guess that's good enough for such a high ranking. Overall, it's mostly fun. So, with that perplexing placement out of the way, let's move on to the number 3 spot, which goes to Resident Evil. Based on a classic zombie-filled survival horror game, we follow a slew of characters trying to survive a zombie outbreak brought on by an evil yet stupid corporation. By the way, you can learn more about that corporation, Umbrella, in the link here, which goes to our list of top 5 favorite evil corporations from sci-fi films. So, this might sound a little weird as I've completely trashed the series in the previous video, but I actually do kind of enjoy the first film. It's not a particularly good adaptation, to be honest, but as a movie based on a video game, it's surprisingly good compared to the competition. So it's kind of like how it would be if a girl asked you out to the dance, not because you're handsome and charming, but because the rest of your class is filled with such assholes that they make you look like Ryan Gosling in comparison. Director Paul W.S. Anderson at least tries to build up kind of a mythology, one that was later lost in the endless sea of crap that is the sequels, but the first film is at least more grounded, restrained, and at least easier to comprehend than the others. Mila Jovovich unfortunately plays an extremely boring and underwritten character, but she pulls off being an uninteresting superwoman with no charisma quite well. Which is possibly the most backhanded compliment I've ever given a film. So this movie isn't necessarily super good, but it is super cheesy and pretty fun anyway, even if the characters in it are about as interesting as paying the bills. Anyway, this moves us up to the number 2 spot, which goes to Mortal Kombat! The first movie on this list that I genuinely, truly enjoy. Alright, so this is based on a super popular and super violent fighting series. In Mortal Kombat, people fight to the death. Yeah, there's not really more story to it than that. That's all that really matters. Mortal Kombat has never really been the most story-heavy game out there, and perhaps that's what lends the concept to film so well. The story was simple, so there wasn't a whole lot to screw up. The film's action scenes are actually really good. But despite this, the film has obviously aged quite a bit.
What is it with you guys?
And it does contain a fair share of cheesy moments.
You guys are lucky you stopped us.
Still though, the characters stay true to those of the games that they're based on, and most of all, the movie is just fun. A lot of other films on this list can get a bit pretentious or drift away from the source material a bit too much, but Mortal Kombat keeps it simple, authentic, violent, and most of all, just really fun and enjoyable.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Alright, this brings us to the number 1 spot on this list, which goes to Silent Hill. Alright, I'm gonna stand by the statement that Christoph Gans' adaptation of Silent Hill is hands down the best video game adaptation ever made. The film is about the popular and super creepy survival horror series that follows various characters in the cursed and way messed up town of Silent Hill. Christoph Gans was truly passionate about this project, but unfortunately the film studio fought him on many decisions, and most of what they made him change truly made the film worse. Still, this is by far the best made film on this list. The production as well as set and costume design is flat out brilliant, and in terms of visuals and sound, I'd say that this film is a damn near flawless adaptation. So I know there's a lot of fans of the series that didn't like this movie, but it's not really a bad adaptation, you just have to kind of look underneath the surface. So the story does get a little muddled, but if you've played the first game, then it's really just a variation on that, even if you change a couple things and the story isn't presented in the most clear way. Gans petitioned to Konami for them to let him make a film because he loved the game so much, and his passion really shows in the film. It's just a shame that the movie studio basically made his job and life so much harder. Radha Mitchell is great in the lead, Sean Bean is pointless to be honest, and Jodelle Ferland is excellent as the creepy little girl Alyssa/Sharon, and that might very well be what she does best. So overall, I really like Silent Hill. I mean, it's just so beautiful to look at, even if there are some inconsistencies and plot holes. So anyway, that does it for this episode of Sci-Fi Night Top 5. We hope you enjoyed it. If you've got a different list, by all means, let us know what it's like in the comments. I'm your host, Sebastian Mendel Martinez, and we'll catch you guys next time.
And basically my message is, fuck yourself.